Welcome to Americana Archives. Today's head-on is Mexican white deer. The subhead-on says, American hunters tell of having killed one of the herd. This story originally came from Sanderson, Texas, on October 7th. It says, James F. Baker and C.T. Lauder, who have arrived here from a trip of exploration in the Rio Grande border region, give corroborative testimony concerning the existence of a large herd of pure white deer in a secluded valley. Reports that such a herd of deer made its home in the border fastness have been brought to the outside world by Mexican goat herders and travelers from time to time for the last 20 years and more. Several expeditions were organized to search for the deer and, if possible, to bring out live specimens, but in every case, failure was met with. Several years ago, the attention of the Smithsonian Institution was called to the reported existence of this herd of white deer, and a representative of the institution was sent to investigate the matter. He failed to find enough evidence of the truth of the report to justify further research. Baker and Lauder went into the rough territory primarily for the purpose of hunting for the candelilla weed, which has recently come to have commercial value because of the high grade of wax that it yields. They took with them a Mexican cook and guide, but they found that he was useless so far as guiding them was concerned when they crossed a few of the ranges of hills. Mr. Baker said, on the 5th day after we struck the hills, we left the Mexican behind, and taking with us what food we could carry, we entered into a region that is almost incomparable for roughness. It was one deep canyon and mountain of rock right after the other. How we managed to cross some of them is a mystery to us both, now that the feats have actually been accomplished. We were looking all the time for some valley or level stretch of country where the candelilla would likely be found growing. We had spent 2 days crossing the canyons and ridges, and both of us were almost beyond making further physical effort. We made our camp in a wild spot in the depth of a canyon, the walls of which were almost perpendicular and extended to a height of fully 700 feet. We stayed there all one night and along toward noon of the next day, when I told Lauder that I would see if I could get to the top of the ridge lying opposite from the direction we had come. I started out and luckily found a good natural trail that I followed to the top. I found myself upon a plateau, almost level, and perhaps 2 miles across. I walked to the other side of this level stretch of ground, and looking down, I beheld a sight that I shall always vividly remember. Spread out before me was a beautiful valley, dotted with flowing springs and running streams, and set with many groves of giant trees. The whole valley was covered with a luxuriant growth of grass, which was of itself a marvel in that desert region. But what instantly attracted my attention was a herd of several hundred animals grazing contentedly among the trees far below me. The animals were white, and I at first thought they were goats. I was still under that impression when I turned away and hurried back to camp, where I informed Lauder of my discovery. He at first thought the desert and hardships of travel had turned my mind, but I finally convinced him that it was no vision that I was picturing to him. We packed up, and placing myself in the lead, I soon had Lauder standing upon the brink of the valley, drinking in the marvelous scene with open mouth and staring eyes. Jim, it's a mirage, he says to me. Suppose I toss a stone down among those goats, I said. If they pay any attention to it, we'll know it's a real scene. I picked up a good-sized boulder and threw it over into the valley as far as I could. It fell in the midst of the herd of white animals and caused a stir among them. This satisfied us that the proposition was not visionary. The next thing for us to do was to find a way to get down into the valley. We estimated that it was not less than 900 feet from where we were standing to the valley level. After some difficulty, we found a circuitous trail that probably had never before been traveled by man or beast, and by running risks of falling to our deaths hundreds of feet below, we finally set our feet upon the rich soil of the valley. One of the first discoveries that we made when we looked around after reaching the valley was that the white animals were not goats, they were deer. Every one of them was pure white. They are about the same size as the blacktail variety. We stayed in the valley 7 days, and many times during that period were within a dozen feet of the white deer. In fact, we killed one of the animals and feasted upon its meat. We started out with its skin, but lost it in making the climb out of the valley. The valley is about 20 miles long by 3 to 8 miles wide. Situated as it is, 900 to 1,000 feet below the surface of the surrounding country, it must have a tropical climate in winter. The days and nights were delightfully cool during the time that we were there. We were loath to leave the hidden paradise, and it's our purpose to return to it as soon as we can get a suitable outfit together for the trip. I believe it is impossible to enter or leave the valley by way of the river that empties into the Rio Grande. In a direct line, it is only about 40 miles from Sanderson to the upper end of the valley. But by the roundabout route that must be followed across the intervening canyons and hills, the distance is more than 100 miles. About a year ago, a Mexican goat herder got lost in the wild region east of the remote border town of Boquillas, Texas. And after an absence of about 2 weeks, he showed up at Rodello's store with the skin of a snow white animal, which he said was a deer. The Mexican told a story that corresponds in almost every detail to that recited by Baker and Lauder. People who heard the Mexican story and saw the white deer skin admitted that the skin was genuine, but they shrugged their shoulders in doubt about there being any such value as he described. This story came from the great state of New York, being reported in the Sun of October 8th, 1911. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.